your energy level has to be a very, very, very high level of energy and intensity and focus. Because you have to really show the woman, whether it's on the phone, in person, it doesn't matter. You have to create this lock where you are honing in on her, where you are really focused and interested, and you have to be able to give her an experience of you. And that is the most typical thing you find with men who are very, very successful with women and who are irresistible to women. They have a high energy. They focus on you as the woman walks in the room. They focus on you, and it's like a laser beam focus, and the woman feels it, and they keep their laser beam focus. And then when you look away, they feel the absence of that. So they want more. And that's why they go out with you, because they want more.
Oh gosh, I'm getting all excited just thinking about it. It's a great one. Now, I know that you also have a very special list for men. Could you tell us what you call it? And I think this is going to be secret number 2.
The to-don't list. You heard the to-do list. I've got a to-don't list for you. And you'll hear some of the things on the to-don't list tonight. And please send me an email if you'd like to get more about it. And tonight, I want everybody to be aware of my really good friend, Marla Martinson's book, because I have been thrilled with these books. This one is Diary of a Beverly Hills Matchmaker. Thank you, Fred, for putting on the screen. And it's really fabulous, and I'm reading another one of her books. She wrote a series. And a lot of these to-don'ts will become very clear to you. If you read her book, you'll see what men have said and what men have done and what they didn't do and what they didn't say and why dating for them was not successful. And don't worry, if you know Marla, she changes the circumstances and the names, so you won't recognize yourself. Anyway, this is really good for everybody to get a clear idea. And you know, the to-don't's pretty easy. If you look at the basic overview, it's don't spend all your time talking about yourself. Don't stare at the woman from the waist up and focus wherever that might be between the top of her head and her waist. Don't be completely superficial when you consider this other human being across from you. Make sure you motivate her to tell you about herself. Make sure that when she does, you find some way of being interested, whatever it might be, and that you respond in some way that shows you're interested. And there's a lot more. The to-don't list is just as long as the to-do list. So send me an email and I'll get it out to you.
There you go. A lot of clarity tonight. I'm really happy about this. Now, what about this texting and versus phone calls? What is the latest in manners during a new relationship?
Well, a lot of men seem to be confused about texting because they maybe texted to their former partner or texted to their kids or texted to their friends. But this is a brand new relationship. So you are expected to make an effort and show an interest in this woman, and a phone call is the best way to do it. Now, let's say, if I'm introducing you to somebody, then I am going to call you and tell you about that person, and I'm going to give you her name and phone number, but really I will have already spoken to her. So there's no question that it's a phone call. If it's a business relationship, then I'm going to send out an email to both of you, and I will introduce both of you to one another in an email. But when you're talking about a date, phone calls are nice, and texts are really something that you do once you already know somebody. Now, if you've been playing phone tag with someone for a while and you can't seem to get in touch with them, then you have an additional problem because they're not going to recognize your phone number if you text them. So then you want to go back to the person who's making the introduction, whether it's me or somebody else, and say, look, I'm trying to reach Barbara on the phone. She calls me and I'm not there, and I call her and she's not there. Would you please let her know that I'm going to be texting her? And I'm going to text her from this number. Sure, definitely can do that. But it's about showing you're interested. So not only do you want to show that you're interested in certain ways, but there are certain aspects of dating. like phone calls versus texting, that just automatically show that you're more interested.
That's a key word, being
Interested.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, would you describe to us the right kind of telephone manners that really motivate a woman to say yes to a first date?
Well, first of all, most women who are beautiful and desirable and successful and intelligent are being pursued wherever they go, right? So you have competition. By saying that you want a beautiful, desirable woman, you automatically are putting yourself in a situation where you've got to show that you're worth the attention, that you're worth her calling you back, that there's something about you that's special and wonderful. So being funny, being witty, being clever, but not in a sarcastic or nasty way, of course, being clever is the best way of all. And again, being interested in her. So make it all about her. Think in advance. Don't try to be clever at the last minute when you're on the phone. Try to think of something to say that's going to catch her attention based on what you already know about her. And I help my clients create this all the time. So if this is something unfamiliar to you, you might want your free session about that. And I'll help you, show you how to get a woman's attention and how to have her respond to you in a positive way. If you've got the skills, you've got the tools, you get the results.
That is sweet. Absolutely. I know that so many men really don't know how to be cooperative. Let's say they are either take charge guys or they are too passive. So what is the solution to this situation?
I have a story for you.
Oh no.
This is the whale watching story. This one surprised even me. Do not have a sip of water because you might spill it. I'm telling you this. This is spoiler alert. So many years ago, a guy finds me on Match.com, contacts me, not a particularly attractive guy, not my type, but he was so nice in the emails. He was gracious, he was flattering, he was intelligent, he was interesting. I thought, well, why not? So then we're speaking on the phone and he said to me, I'd like to take you to do something you'd really love to do. Well, I love the water. I said, well, if it's not too much, I would love to go whale watching. I had just moved to the shore at Oxnard, and I had just moved back from New York, and I was back in California. I was thrilled. That's what I would love to do. Oh, he said, that's fabulous. I would love to do that. And he said, and tell you what, I'll bring 2 windbreakers, because I bet you don't have a windbreaker. I thought, great. So he's thoughtful, he's considerate, he's up for doing something really generous. And he said, and then we'll go to the chart house. There used to be a chart house not far from there. So I thought, now this is a really nice guy. This is a great guy. So he's not the best looking guy in the world, but I'll have a fantastic time. And you never know. He might be so terrific. Who knows? Whale watching was great. He was a lovely guy. We even saw some whales. We went to the chart house. The chart house was lovely. We had a perfectly lovely evening. We had a perfectly lovely time. I should have, at that point, found a bodyguard, and that would have been the end of the evening. It didn't even occur to me. Didn't even occur to me. It wasn't even dark out. So he said, let me walk you to the parking lot. Seems like a reasonable thing to do. He walks me to the parking lot. Now remember, he's been with me all day. He was with me on the boat. He was with me coming from the boat. He was with me, for hours and hours and hours and hours. He walks me to my car. I get in my car. I lock the door to my car. I don't even know why, because he seemed like a reasonable guy. I pushed the window down so he could say goodbye. He wants to give me a little kiss, no big deal. He gives me a kiss, and he reaches in and he grabs me.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
I mean, there was no warning. Obviously, I pulled out of that parking lot pretty fast. but not over his toes. But so being cooperative means considering your needs, considering the woman's needs, coming up with strategies that meet both people's needs, and not doing anything insane on the date.
Oh, he lost control. I don't know what to say. Okay, so that's a no-no.
No grabbing. No grabbing if you want to ever see her again.
Oh my. Well, all right, you're right. I'm glad I wasn't sipping water, Susan. So let's explore this. For manners on a first date, what can a man do to show that he is respectful and really cares that a woman is having a good time?
Obviously, everything until the parking lot was perfect. Yeah, I mean, it's great. And I've gone on, 12 million first dates in my life. Okay, don't make the mistake that two guys made on a first date and proposed marriage. That was just dopey. That was just very strange. If I hadn't been there myself, if they weren't proposing to me, I honestly wouldn't believe it. But, taking somebody to a lovely restaurant, asking someone what kind of food they like, taking them to a restaurant consistent with that, making it someplace that's geographically easy for them, because everyone comes in separate cars these days. So, doing all of that, being considerate about convenience, preferences of a woman is something that everybody enjoys. And, it's always a big thing these days if you hold a door open and open a car door, because a lot of people don't do it. So if you do that, it really gives you extra points. And anything that you do that's considerate gives you extra points. Now, a lot of it has to do with the age of the woman. So there are things you do if a woman is 20 years old and things you do if a woman is 40 years old. It's a big differential. But looking out and taking care of a woman to the degree that you can on a first, second, third, fourth date gets you big, big points with any woman.
Yes, I'm old-fashioned. I would appreciate all those niceties, I guess the word would be. Thank you. I knew she'd say it right. Well, okay, let's talk about appearances. So then you can describe the visuals for a man?
Well, you have to be careful if you're a guy that you are really putting your best foot forward, You have to be sure that your hair looks great, your nails look great, your clothes look great, you shaved, all the basics. I mean, it's one thing if you're a big movie star and you don't want anyone to recognize you. And so, you're wearing crappy clothes and all that, and you don't shave because you don't want anyone to recognize you. But that's the opposite of the way you want to behave on a first date. On a first date, you want to show how much you care about this stranger and how much respect you have for yourself. And so you're going to do everything to look good. And whatever that means for you. So make an effort, make sure that things that you select to wear look really good, and have clean shoes and have all your clothes together and have your car washed. All of these things make a big, big difference. And, if you think that quirky works, I have to say that a lot of men and women can't find a good relationship that really would work for them because they're so busy being different. And, really take a look at the market. It's a buyer's market sometimes, it's a seller's market sometimes. And when you're a guy, when you're young, you're not as much in demand. As you get older, the older a man gets, the more in demand he is. So you've got to understand what that curve is. It's a bell curve in every case.
Thank you, Susan. This is an interesting question I have for you now. What about communication investigation? How does a man find out what a new woman is like in his life without sounding like it's an inquisition? I guess this is secret number 3.
Well, I imagine, Gigi, when you ask that, you're wondering how a guy would find out everything he needs to know about you.
Uh-oh.
Your past, your present, your interests, right?
Yes.
and that's finessing, don't press. So you would imagine, perhaps, imagine that, you have very specific preferences about a guy, and that you'd be interested in, even as a friend, having a man who looks a certain way and acts a certain way, and, is a doctor or an attorney or something very accomplished, and who's very successful in his field.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I didn't ask her what she likes. I imagined, guessed, and finessed. And that's how you do it. So if a man is on the phone with you, or if he's on a date with you, he needs to finesse, which means guess, what your preferences are. So if you already asked a woman what kind of a restaurant she prefers, what kind of cuisine she prefers, now you're in an Italian restaurant and you're discussing the menu, so then, easily, would say, I imagine that because you love Italian food, you might want a pasta dish. So you're not asking, you're imagining, you're guessing. That's something really basic. But if somebody tells you that she's divorced and she has 3 small children, and you didn't know that, you have a lot of stuff to guess. I imagine this must be really stressful because you've got to co-parent with their father, but at the same time, so much of each week, you are responsible for the children on your own. So that's finessing for information about whatever is going on with that former husband, because obviously if you're going to date a woman who's got 3 children, that guy is a big player in the relationship. You need to finesse for information there.
Very nice. I like the way you do it. You're very good at that, Susan.
Well, I imagine, Gigi.
That's her business too, right?
I do it all day long, right? I do it all day long because I can't come and say to you, so was your former wife crazy? No, I'll say, I imagine that you're very disappointed by such and such that happened in your marriage because I know you're divorced. It sounds as if that was very, very difficult for you. Is that right? Oh, you have no idea how difficult it was. Yeah, that's how people feel comfortable enough to tell you what's going on. You don't want to ask directly, you want to finesse for information.
And that interest, that key interest. Now, what is the best way that for a man to keep her attention throughout the date and keep her from looking at her cell phone? I'm imagining this is secret number 4.
Being present. Now, a woman can tell if you're figuring out the next witty thing you're going to say and not present.
Yeah.
She can tell if you're judging her as you look at her. She can tell if you're just basically uncomfortable being alive, uncomfortable in your skin, uncomfortable in your suit, in your chair, etc. She can tell. So, women can figure this stuff out. It's pretty easy. They don't have to have studied microfacial expressions, They don't have to have studied, with the CIA. They get a pretty good idea if you're squirming around and if your head is, swiveling every time another woman walks by. They know that you're not really present with them. Or my famous story of the guy who's on a date with me, and again, not a guy that I was particularly interested in, even on the first date, but he lived down the street from me in New York. It was so convenient. I thought, well, I should, see if I could, get a little interest going on my part. And so the wine had just been delivered. We each had a glass of wine. And we hadn't even ordered dinner, and he burst into tears over his previous relationship. She left him, and he was heartbroken. So I spent the evening, empathizing with him because of the pain he was in. And he actually, if I recall correctly, asked me if I'd like to see him again. What? Are you out of your mind? I said, no, I can see that you're in a lot of pain and that you really need some time to work with a professional and resolve this.
Oh, my. Oh, that's a sad story, but another reality.
It was crazy.
Gee. Well, so let's explore. How does a man show that he is really interested in a woman on a first date without being too vulnerable, or scaring her off? Secret number 5.
This comes from the EST training from, in my case, 1980. So this is an oldie but goodie. Be interested, don't be interesting. And it's funny, I just saw a friend who I haven't seen in 33 years who obviously had practiced the story he wanted to tell me after all these years. And so he starts the story on the way to brunch. And he keeps trying to tell the story in the car for like 15 minutes. It was a boring story 5 minutes into it for me. I wasn't enjoying the story. He proceeds to tell me, no, I have to finish the story. So all through brunch, he tries to tell me this story. So talk about someone who was neither interested in what I had to say nor interesting at all. And this is a guy who I actually met in 1981, who he knows about being interested, don't be interesting. But if you can't be interested, at least be sure you're interesting. Really check it out with some friends who are, professional comedians or raconteurs, because it was a disaster. I had to force myself to be present, which is number 4, while he was blowing number 5.
Oh my, oh gee.
And it was really excruciating.
Yes, that would be. All these experiences, see, all this knowledge. Now, what about generosity? I know that some men like to buy a woman trinkets, and some men refuse to even, let's say, they refuse to even take a woman out for a nice restaurant and find out what her intentions are. So what's really appropriate in this?
Well, of course, it depends on the man and it depends on the woman. So obviously, if a 25-year-old woman is going out with a 65-year-old man or even a 50-year-old man, she's doing it not because she's wildly crazy about him, unless he's, was Clint Eastwood, or somebody like that who is divorced from a much younger woman. So you have to be using your common sense here. So if you are an older guy and you want to date a very, very young woman, there's probably going to be an exchange of gifts. And that's probably a big part of it. And Marla's book is hilarious on this topic. I mean, hilarious. On, men who are in their, 60s and even 70s who want young women, who are really, really beautiful. The women have to be exquisitely beautiful. And they don't realize that they're expected to take them to incredible restaurants, unbelievable resorts, and buy them presents. Yeah, that's kind of a given. But if you are a nice man dating a nice woman, then you don't want to get sucked into that. You certainly don't want to be dating somebody who is in it for money. Of course not. That's horrific. Nor do you need to. If you're a nice guy, you've got a nice career and a nice life, you don't need to. So be very, very cautious. And, the way to do it is to make sure that you pick a lovely restaurant that is going to offer you a really nice ambiance and really nice food. But, if it's in Beverly Hills, don't make it Spago. Don't make it one of the most incredibly expensive restaurants in the United States of America. Don't try to bribe her. That's the point. And you'll know what that means. You will understand the difference. And if you don't, send me an email, because I'll describe times people tried to bribe me. And I didn't let them do it because I didn't want to be bribed. I didn't want there to be any misunderstanding. I remember I wouldn't even let a guy buy me the Sunday Times on a date because I disliked him so much. I think the paper was $1.25 in those days. But I disliked him so much, I didn't want to feel indebted to him for $1.25. So that's the other part of it. If you're a woman, you don't want to get yourself into that position where a man thinks that by, spending $500, at Nobu, that now you're going to name your firstborn son after him. So just be careful. Tonight's show is about you guys, but I just couldn't resist that.
Great information. Well, now, so let's explore this. How important is a man's attitude on this date? not just his energy, but his approach to having to be a success. I think this is secret number 6.
Yeah. And there's a lot of strangeness in guys who seem to be excited about dating a really fabulous woman, but who then don't want to make an effort to make sure she's having a wonderful time. It's, some people might say, well, it's self-destructive. Maybe it is. I'm not a therapist. But what I see is that at some point, they stop behaving the way they do in business, where they are very successful in business, they follow through, they see things through. The first meeting is as successful and well considered as the 10th meeting. But they don't do the same thing with the dates. So they may make a big effort on the first date, but then they decide they want her to love him just the way he is. So now they're going to show up in a hoodie and an old pair of jeans. And now they don't have their car washed, and now they just want to show her a restaurant they find comfortable. Well, she didn't sign on for a relationship with you yet, and it's a little bit too early to scare her off because there is no evidence that she's on. So you don't have to push her off, So the big deal is, if you have respect for yourself and you have respect for women, you're going to be consistent. Your behavior is going to be reasonable. And that means you're going to look your best, you're going to act your best, you're going to come up with lovely opportunities, things to do that would be fun for both of you, within your price range, whatever it is. But remember, you are selling somebody on your lifestyle, because that's what a successful man is for a woman. And when she then reciprocates, and then you know each other better, and she invites you to her place, and she cooks for you or takes you out if she can afford it, then she's doing her pitch. So you have to make sure that your pitch is strong enough, just as it would be in business, that the relationship moves forward. Yeah, don't take her to a jewelry store. Don't take her to Neiman Marcus. I'm not saying that, but do make sure that you have a nice time, both of you.